Um, Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Detroit Sports Sit Down. This is a very special episode today as we have a special guest, former Detroit Red Wings athletic trainer, John Wharton. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Appreciate you having me.
So you were the head athletic trainer for the Detroit Red Wings during arguably the greatest era in Wings history, given like the 50s, where it was a great time. But man, you saw it from starting in 1990, I believe, right? And then all the way through 2002. Four Stanley Cups? Three probably, right?
Three.
Yeah.
We went to four finals, 3 Stanley Cups. Yeah, we had, I was lucky to be in the right place at the right time and doing the right thing.
Yeah.
There's a cliche about luck being when preparation meets opportunity, and I was blessed to have a lot of strong mentorship at Central Michigan, and then did an excellent internship at Henry Ford, and next thing you know, I'm behind the bench with the Detroit Red Wings as a 26-year-old in 1990. So it happened. It came at me kind of fast, and then we were able to put together the squad that Jimmy Devellano and Scotty Bowman and Mike Ilitch put together, and I was really blessed to be there.
Yeah, absolutely. Hockey players are, notorious for being, tough and playing through pretty much anything, right? So how with your job, how hard was it to tell a guy, look, you're injured, you can't play? And can you talk about maybe some specific times where you really had to just harness a guy down and say, look, you're not going on the ice tonight?
Well, if you're, it's a fine line, because if they feel like you're not going to let them play, they're not going to tell you about stuff. By the same token, if they feel like, I also worked for the Lions right out of college in '87. Before I was with the Red Wings, I was with the Lions. And when that experience, it was kind of the opposite. Players would come to the trainers to try and get out of practice or get out of games. Hockey players, as you so aptly mentioned, they're going to play through anything. My job was really just to keep them as comfortable as I could. But when it came to things, torn ligaments or broken bones and stuff like that, and guys they really have an innate ability to know whether they can go or not. And hockey players really have a strong pain tolerance. Steve Yzerman's right up there with the best and strongest pain tolerance I've ever seen. But so it wasn't that hard for me to tell a guy when he was down, because if he had a torn ligament, I would just have to mention the longevity of their careers, and most of them had wife and kids. Some of the younger guys would get it because they really looked to the elder guys. So the key for me was establishing a rapport with the veterans who were much older than me at the time when I was 26, and you got to establish some confidence from the player to the trainer, and it's got to be a mutual respect that I have their best interest in mind, but I'm also trying to win. But they are too. And the greatest thing about hockey is that no matter what, the most important thing, more than points, more than contracts, more than anything, hockey players, it's all about winning. So when they realize that the trainer and the equipment guy and everybody's all pulling on that rope, then it really becomes a synergistic effort that really wasn't that difficult for me to figure out.
Yeah, and I know you hear stories like you mentioned football where you'll hear stories where coaches are arguing with team doctors saying, no, this guy he should play. Did you experience any of that with the coaches where they're like, no, I think he's good to go, and you had a different opinion?
A lot of times, Scotty Bowman comes to mind right out at the top. Just like with players, it was important. When I was already there, when Scotty Bowman came to the team in '94, I had been there 4 years. But I had to double back and establish a relationship with, probably arguably the best coach in any sport of all time. So. Yeah. And he was right from the get-go. He was respectful of my preparation and my training. He never disparaged what I was trying to do. He would just always want to make sure that we were getting the most out of the players. And the players, everyone would always ask me, how would you know if Scotty didn't like somebody? And then I would just say, check and see who got traded. Because if he didn't like you, you weren't going to stick around for very long.
Yeah.
But the guys that were there, he really was hands off in terms of medical. As long as he felt confident in your abilities and your training and your skills, then he really let me do my thing. One of the things that kind of, now that I'm pretty far removed from the game that I can reveal, one of the things that we did was having an older team. I went to Scotty, a couple of those years where we were already had our playoff position locked in, and we had a mature team. I don't, being up in years myself, I don't like to say we were an old team, but we were a mature team. So, yeah. And the goal is to peak in June. It's not to peak at the end of the season. It's not to peak for playoffs. It's to peak for the Stanley Cup Finals. And with that in mind, I would go to Scotty and say, we've got to rest Larry Murphy. We really should rest Slava Fetisov. We should, he's not an old guy, but we really should rest Nick Lidstrom. And so Scotty said, yeah, we should. How do we do that? And I said, well, I make up some injury reports. So, we fudged the system a little bit to be able to get guys rest later in the season, and it worked for us. Back to back, and especially without Vladdy, we were able to rest some guys and kind of massage the system a little bit. And there's some tighter restrictions on being able to do that now, but back then nobody was really looking at the injury reports and saying who was out and when. But if you go back and look at Nick Lidstrom missing 3 games about 2 weeks before playoffs, then now you know why.
Yeah. And that's interesting you say that, because now you got the term load management, especially with the NBA basketball players. That guys, they're just
right.
They're not even doing that. They're not faking it. They're not doing nothing. They're just saying, hey man, I'm out tonight because I'm resting. And what do you think about that? Correct. As far as you need to. I'm kind of on the fence with it, because guys they have to get their rest, especially the teams they're going for the long push through the playoffs. These teams like Golden State, where when you're winning back-to-back titles or going to the finals, that's the playoffs is like a second season. So these guys, yeah, I do get it. They need to rest, but what about like the fans? The fans that are paying good money for these games. They may have bought these tickets to see LeBron James 6 months in advance. And come to find out he's not playing that night because of load management. I mean, where's the balance with that there, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's a fancy term for it now. We would just do it in ways that we knew that I kind of had a chart. It was called periodization. I'm always been a big runner. And so you would periodize your training schedule throughout the calendar year. And you would focus your training and specialize your training at certain parts during the year so that you peaked when your big race was. And for us, that was Stanley Cup Finals. So periodization was a big thing. And now it's load management, and now they're right up front about it. Back then, fans wouldn't know that Nick Lidstrom wasn't going to play that night until he wasn't in the lineup during warm-up. But now they just come right out and say it. And, I don't know what to say to the fans other than to say that the objective from a medical standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, is to put the best product out on the court or out on the ice or on the field at the right time of the year. And for me, that's playoffs. So I look at it, I'm a fan of all sports. I also can see it from the other side, where these guys are human. They might look, LeBron James looks superhuman. Sergei Fedorov leg looks superhuman, but 82 games is a long, long season, man. Yeah. Most people, I don't know if you played, pickup hockey. I still play once a week. I'm beat up. I can't play 3 or 4 times, and I definitely couldn't play 82 games a year. And then you hear people say, well, he's getting 10, 12 million. That doesn't matter. The human body can only take so much. So I get both perspectives. I would just ask a fan. I would get load management in its prioritization from a successful club. I don't know if I would take it from a cellar dweller.
Yeah. Now, so on that point, can you talk about the run, the Wings when they went back to back? Because from an athletic trainer standpoint, like how did you go about that? Because like I said, the hockey, the playoffs they're so intense, and to run through that back to back like that and come out successful, you must have had a big part in that by keeping these guys healthy. Can you touch on that a bit? Like how difficult it really was to go and win back to back Stanley Cups like that?
Right. A lot of the second year was a lot of it was on emotion. We didn't really win that cup. I've said before, we didn't win that second cup for Vladdy. We kind of won it because of him.
Yeah.
And it just, so a lot of that was banked on emotion. We were all just acting and living and feeling and, not really thinking as much. And just, we had a single solitary goal in mind. But the first year, the 97 year, we went 16-4. In that playoff run, so 20 games, and we had one man game lost due to injury. I still can't explain it. I don't know how that happened. We were very blessed. I don't think you'll see anything like that happen again. Joey Koster was out for back spasms in Game 4 of the Anaheim series. Other than that, every player was able to play every single game. So, that's crazy. But in 92 or 93, my son had, actually it was 94 because I had a 1-year-old son, Luke, he dehydrated from the flu. And I remember the doctors giving him Pedialyte and explaining to me, the electrolyte situation. This is early 90s. And I just thought, man, we should be using that in hockey, overtimes and things like that, and dehydration and guys getting IVs was kind of a big thing, and I was like, what if we hydrate and use our electrolyte intake so that we get to the point where our bodies are balanced and we don't need to get IVs, intravenous fluids, and we don't need to, because dehydration causes a lot of other problems, muscle strains, ligaments sprains. Dehydration can be can cause a lot of issues. So if you can manage that thing, if you can manage the nutrient aspect of it, if you can manage the emotional aspect of it, then you can really limit your injuries. And I look back and I think that we had probably a better grasp of those type of things before a lot of teams or a lot of other sports did. So, we did some things early on that are commonplace now and became commonplace a couple of years after we did them. Like I said, with the Pedialyte and having fruit on hand, just picking up bunches of stuff. And, you hear stories about opposing teams running down to, try to get slices of pizza or bread or rolls from the kitchen during, third or fourth overtimes. We had all that stuff stocked and prepared and ready, so we didn't run into those issues. So that was a big part of it.
Yeah. You mentioned Vladimir Konstantinov. Obviously, you were right in the thick of that situation where is an absolute just a tough situation. With the how did the team handle that? I think all of us Wings fans had a really tough time dealing with it, but the team really seemed to rally around Vladdy but from your inside perspective, what was that really like when that happened?
It was, I don't know if you've ever been physically just rocked, punched in the gut. It was, if you can do that to an entire sports team or an entire city like Detroit, I still get emotional about it. We just got popped, and it took the wind out of us big time. But as the summer settled in, I mean, I lived in Birmingham, a couple miles up the road from Beaumont Hospital in Royal Oak. So I would go there every single day, sometimes twice a day. I was there for 4 or 5 months straight, and most of the players were as well. And then finally, once we got back from training camp, I said, look, guys, you guys really want you to focus. I know you want to be there for Vladdy. I'm going to still keep going there every day. I'm going to go there every day, and I'm going to come here, and I'm going to answer your guys' questions. I'm going to relay messages. You know, if you guys want to go up there once a week or twice, and I almost felt some stress lift off collectively from the team, knowing that, all right, we know he's okay. We know you're going to be going there and checking on him. We know we're going to be getting feedback. We know we're here talking with the doctors and with Vladdy and Sergey, and so we can go and focus on playing hockey. And that was looking back, that was something that I'm glad that I did, because it was bad enough we lost 2 team members to that, and I felt like we were losing a lot more because from an energy standpoint, it was just sapping the team. So I said, look, I got this. I'm going to handle this part of it. You guys go play hockey. So that's really how we handled that. And, you know, it's something that I'll never recover from an energy or from an emotional standpoint. There's just a part of me that I won't ever get back, but I'm fine with that because, you know, of the way we handled it.
Yeah. The Russian Five as a whole is such a unique situation that you were right at the forefront of. Can you talk about the transition that you could, because starting with the team in 1990 and seeing the transgression go, and then going through the entire Russian Five, you know, the Russian invasion, or, you know, whatever you want to call it. But it was such a change to hockey, like the way the Russian Five, it was such a instrumental part of changing, like evolutionizing maybe the game of hockey and the way it was played. And you were you had a front row seat for that. Can you talk about the thing? I wonder, was there from a communication standpoint, you know, like the language barrier, you know, or like all those little things that like Wings fans might really not understand. I know the documentary was out, and that was a really good documentary. I enjoyed that, but you know, I just wonder if maybe you can give some insight on what it was like to see this transformation and have it be right on your doorstep.
It was a unique. You know, we started accumulating, as you alluded to, the Russian Five, the documentary. They did a phenomenal job telling that story. Joshua Rail, the other directors and producers, did a great job. I was fortunate to be interviewed for that and you know, give some of my insight. But the thing that the communication really wasn't that difficult, because once the hockey players got on the ice, there's not a whole lot of talk. There's more talking on the bench, obviously, but when you get on the ice together, there's a feel. And obviously a big part of the whole Russian invasion thing was puck possession, which is, you know, if you have the puck, the other team can't score, number one, so it also benefits you from a defensive standpoint. But when you also have the puck a lot, you're a lot more likely to score than the other team is. So puck possession was really the focus of that whole Russian Five unit. But everyone's like, you know, they just possessed the pucks. There wasn't a lot of physicality. And I was saying, well, wait a minute, you know, remember Vladdy laying guys out at center ice, and you know, that was a big part of it too. Is that they would pick their spots for that aspect of it. But then it was just always puck possession, regroup, putting the puck where the puck should be and let the player go to it instead of trying to pass the puck to a player. You know, from that standpoint, and I'm not a hockey coach, and I'm a very below average hockey player, but I was fortunate enough to stand back there and look and say, oh man, Igor's going to throw it right there because I know so-and-so is going to skate right into that. And there, you know, it happened. And once you start being able to look for that, it was just like, wow. And that's just like beautiful. That's stunning. I've never seen that before. And when they started playing that way, and guys would go, I think Max said it, Darren McCarty, it's like, you're at the NHL level, and you can go an entire shift, and there's 5 guys out there on your team that didn't touch the puck for 50 seconds, a minute. And that's frustrating. You're playing in the best league in the world, and you can't touch the hockey puck. I mean, that just says all you need to know about the Russian Five right there. Just dominant. But like I said, is that after a while, and the reason it didn't work for seasons, Scotty was smart enough to employ it when he did and for as long as he did. And then he was smart enough to pull out of it because, if I as a trainer can know where Igor is going to put the puck for so-and-so to go, then opposing coaches are smart enough to tell their players how to defend it. So, he didn't force feed it. He used it to our advantage, to his advantage, and then he would pull out of it when he felt like the team or a unit, if we were on the road, somebody with a last change, then, he would change it up. And that's one of the many things that made Scotty Bowman such a great coach.
Yeah. And it was such a exciting time, But I mean, the whole run is just incredible. How did you handle it? From okay, you're on the bench. Your job is to be the trainer, make sure these guys are staying healthy. You're probably monitoring the players and how they're doing. But how hard was it to not just as a sports fan, as a Red Wings fan, growing up? How hard was it to not just get caught up in just watching the game and cheering for the team, as opposed to actually doing your job on the bench in some of those moments?
Yeah, there's you kind of have tunnel vision or blinders on, if you will, because it's deafening loud down there on the bench, but it's also quiet, and that's a weird way to put it. But one of the main things about establishing a relationship with a player is reading their body language. So I could tell, guys coming off the ice if they needed my help right away before they even sat down. So that, and when things were clicking and when things looked good and lines were just changing and nobody, had that body language or that look on their face that they needed help, then I was watching a lot. And I saw, if I ever wrote a book, it would be best seat in the house, even though I never sat. I sat back there behind 10 Hall of Famers and next to one on the left of me and soaked it all in. I was 20 feet away from both Probert Domi fights, I had to pull Scotty Bowman off of Patrick Waugh because he was reaching over the boards when he was fighting Oscar. Later, Scotty would call me in because I knew if he touched Patrick Waugh, he was going to be in trouble. Yeah. Scotty called me in after the game and he said, commissioner called and I was looking at a big fine. So,
wow.
Thank you. I was looking at a big fine and suspension so thank you for hog tying me and pulling me off of that. So, just those things and being part of that. But it's just, when they happen, you don't really think about it. And then now, looking back on what a special minute, been looking back on it for a while, but the farther away it gets, the more you realize how special it was because the game has changed with the salary cap and, with less fighting and really trying to clamp down on the head injuries, which I totally get and I totally agree with. The CTE is a big problem.
Yeah.
So the game is a lot different. So the farther away we get from those glory days of the Red Wings, you realize how really special they were.
Yeah, and you did. So you caught kind of the end of the Dead Wings era when the biggest thing about a Wings game would be Probert beating someone up, but they were still losing in the standings, and then you saw the climb to glory. But with all that said, with with CTE and all the tough head injuries that we're seeing now, and with the game changing the way it is. You were right there with three of the best that when it comes to just fighting and being bruisers, and that's Probert, Kosher, and Darren McCarty.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about about those guys and about how real hardcore hockey fans will always love the aspect of fighting, but at the same time it's it's a dying breed now, and
Right.
those three guys. They'll go down in hockey history as three of the toughest dudes to ever put on skates.
We had Troy Crowder too.
Oh, Troy Crowder.
He was a tough one. We had a few other ones escaping me right now, but yeah, that was a whole different era. And Bob Probert in my book is at one level, and then everybody else is slightly below him.
Yeah.
In terms of that type of ability, the guy just literally did not feel pain. But he inflicted a lot of it.
Yeah.
So it was, I was there when Bobby got traded, and I was there also to see Joe Koster come back. He was already with the Rangers and already gone when I started with the team, and then came back to the Red Wings in '96, '97. But yeah, that was. And I think there's the right amount of fighting right now. I think a lot of fans are. I don't think they can ever eliminate it totally because of the police aspect of it and the respect that other players need to have for the skilled position for the skilled players. But I think there's probably the right amount of it right now. But I'm afraid they're going to clamp down on it even further.
You have to imagine, because in one aspect, the fans, we love it. You love a good hockey fight. It's
Right.
ingrained in your brain. I've been watching hockey since I just turned 40 this year, and I've been a Wings fan, since since '85. I think I was 5 years old. I think when I first started watching hockey. So I remember when it was, you'd have these games where just half the game was fighting sometimes, and
Yeah.
you grew up on
Yeah.
that, and then it gradually started fading away, and
Right.
in one aspect, it seems kind of barbaric that you could just drop your gloves and just start pounding each other in the face,
Yeah.
but at the same
Yeah.
time, it's such a part of the game where it's how do I don't think as a fan I want to see it completely taken away, and especially. Like you said,
definitely not.
Because you can't just have bruisers knocking around skill players with no recourse, with no repercussions.
Yeah.
So, but
You're going to see a lot more injuries if fighting is removed altogether. But there's a delicate balance. It's not just it is the CTE. There's also a lot of because of the CTE, depression, and unfortunately addiction, and eventually some very unfortunate suicides. A lot of. When we lost, in the mid 2000s, we lost 4 or 5, maybe 6 NHL tough guys to suicide and/or drug overdose, and that's when you saw the tide shift, and rightly so, I think, from a league standpoint. But to tamper it down a little bit, but I think you're right, and I agree with you that it can't be eliminated from the game. It really can't.
And that's what it is. When you mention those things, the same thing with football. You're hearing so many sad stories about ex-football players that later on in life it just the CTE takes over the brain, and it's tragic. It really is. But American sports fans it's like a bloodthirst. It's like.
Yeah.
So how do you're never gonna with football, you can't. They can try to protect the players as much as they can, but people love the hard hits. And football's just such a tough game. Same with hockey. Cronwall right now, man. I love you just got Cronwalled. When he comes through with a major hit, or people love that stuff.
The thing I'll go back to fighting again. CTE is not 100% traceable to fighting in no way, shape, or form. The clean hits have to remain a part of the game. The equipment needs to get better. Football helmets have gotten much better. I think hockey helmets are lagging severely behind in protection. And the biggest thing for me is the glass. When I first started in the league the boards were very flexible. The plexiglass had a lot of give. The stanchions that held the glass panels together would sway back. Now it's literally running into a barricade, a brick wall. You got 5/8-inch tempered glass, and I understand, some fans, some of the glass would pop out, and some fans got injured. Don't sit there.
Yeah.
Or sign a waiver to sit there. You want to sit there.
Yeah.
But the players who are really, taking the brunt of the injury with that heavy hard boards and no give in them, that's the biggest thing for me. And that they can try to take fighting and eliminate fighting completely out of the game all you want, but if you leave that glass exactly like it is, and if you don't stop the head humming, and I'm not saying Nick Cronwall ever did that. I think 99.5% of his hits were clean.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot of cheap shots that lead to concussions in this league, and they've got to find a way to get rid of it. It's definitely not even close to being all about fighting.
Yeah.
They first and foremost, they got to address that glass.
Yeah. And with the cheap shots, the one, I wonder if this is the worst injury that you saw. Well, you've probably seen a lot of just terrible injuries, but the worst one's got to be Chris Draper, I would think, when he got cheap shotted and smashed into boards, and that led to probably one of the greatest moments in Red Wings history. Was the fight night at the Joe when McCarty just
March 26th. Yeah.
Can you talk about that at first what was it like for you? Because you were probably one of the first people to deal with Chris Draper when
it happened right in front of me, and I saw it, and his cheekbone hit the riser, and when I got to him, I jumped over the bench and got to him. He had a 4-inch dent in his face, and I said, Chris, this is going to swell up fast. I didn't say it, but I'm thinking he's definitely got a brain injury. So I got to backboard you. And he's like hell you are. And he just got up and skidded. If you look at the replay, I'm pretty much just chasing him to the dressing room, But that's hockey players. They're like, you're not putting me on a backboard. Are you kidding me? They're like, that's not happening. My wife's watching. These fans are watching. I'm not going on a backboard.
Yeah.
So he just got up and started skating away. But as soon as he got in the medical room in Colorado, he passed out. And I think everybody's seen the pictures afterwards. He had 5 broken bones in his skull and a depressed sinus, which led to an infection. He was his jaw wired shut. He was in the hospital for close to 10 days, and I was feeding him liquid protein through a straw every day for 2 weeks. And that kind of stuff has got to be eliminated. It definitely was the worst injury that I saw on the ice. And that kind of stuff can't happen. Fortunately, Chris made a full recovery and had a great 18-year NHL career, but that could have ended his career. And, they've got to get a handle on that. I think they're doing a better job of it, but to blame all that, CTE and all the prolonged head injuries on fighting is ridiculous.
Yeah. Now, so how was it that night? And when McCarty got redemption on Lemieux. I mean, we all know, we honor it every year. You see it on Facebook or whatever. But fans just have a. It was just such a great night, and it led, and I think I've seen you did an interview in the past and kind of touched on this, and just I think all Wings fans really understand what a rallying point that night was, and it led to that run for the Cup. But if you can just elaborate on what the energy was like that night in that building, and how important that night was to the Stanley Cup run.
I think Darren said it best. Nobody talked about it, but everybody knew it was coming. I honestly, I swear to God, never heard anybody ever say, we're getting Claude Lemieux tonight. F those guys. We're getting there. Nobody ever said anything like that. You could just feel it though.
Yeah.
I almost felt like it was going to happen the game before, and I can't remember how think it was about 2 or 3 weeks before that, I could feel I could feel the tension because it was coming up on the last time we were going to play them in the regular season. You knew nothing was really going to happen in playoffs because no one's going to want to put their team in a bad position if somebody ends up in the box for five, on a 5-minute power play or on a 5-on-3 if it was a mauling like it was, like it ended up being. But the way that it happened, really so organically with Igor Larionov and Peter Forsberg mixing it up of all people. I mean,
yeah.
two of the least pugilistic guys in the league probably ended up starting that thing, and just the way that it happened organically and what it led to, and everybody, Shanahan flipping Waugh through the air, and then the Vernon Waugh fight. But then there were, throughout after that was all broken up, and McCarty and the turtle pose and all that. But there were 7 or 8 more fights throughout that game. It was just nonstop. And then Shanny said it best. If we don't win that game, then it doesn't really mean as much. And then to win that game and come back from 3 goals behind and win that game in overtime, it was just a complete bonding moment for a team. And I think I've said before, there were guys there till like 3, 4 in the morning. We watched the whole game over twice.
Really?
They just got a bunch of beer and pizzas, and we just knew.
You just stayed right in the locker room,
guys,
or?
Guys were calling their wives and saying, "Hey, I'm not coming home. We're watching this again."
Wow.
Everybody just felt it, and really it was the crowd too. I mean, you got to give the crowd was reacting to what was going on in the ice, but I'll tell you for sure the guys were reacting to what was going on in the stands. We could just feel it. It was just that mutual, F these guys, this is ours now. This is what we needed, and we got it out, and here we go. You could just feel it in the room after that almost every day.
And it was you talk about the greatest rivalries of all time. You definitely start with Michigan, Ohio State. You can go on and on. Auburn, Bama. There's so many good Yankees, Red Sox. But for that time period, Wings, Avs, that holds weight to be one of the greatest rivalries of all time. Like in a shortened span, like that 5-6 years, or it was 2 great teams that really hated each other, that were constantly battling, and it's some of the greatest playoff series, I think of all time, and I would put it up there as,
it has to go. It has to be up there in the great rivalries in sports, and I really in hockey right now, I could only look at the Calgary-Edmonton rivalry and point to that. And I don't know if you saw earlier this year there was a goalie fight, and I felt like, it's awesome. We have a rivalry again. I don't think that Calgary-Edmonton ever went anywhere. But other than that, I just don't feel there was. You said it. There was just genuine hate. Yeah. The coaches hated each other. The trainer there was an a-hole. And I didn't like him, and he didn't like me, and the bus drivers probably didn't like each other. It's like just nobody liked anybody from either organization.
Yeah.
He couldn't stand Pierre Lacroix, and it's just top to bottom. We just hated and those ugly uniforms and that color combination. It's just everything about the Colorado Avalanche is just disgusting.
And just 2 people, definitely some players, like Lemieux for sure and Patrick Waugh are easily hateable people, as far as like hockey fans go. Like, you're right, man. Like,
D-bags.
Yeah.
All the way, but unfortunately, and I hope we get to see rivalries like that again in sports. I don't feel like there's any of them right now, and hopefully some of them will come back. But there was just genuine hate and just disgust. But there was never, there never was disrespect, and I think that's one of the things that also contributed to a really good rivalry, is because when you stop respecting somebody, then you stop wanting to beat them. They're not important to you. So I don't think either team ever lost respect for the other, and I think that's one of the things that contributed to the great rivalry.
Yeah. I want to ask about a couple players individually. I know you can't probably share too. Like, a lot of stuff's got to stay private. Just out of respect. But if you could just talk about a few players, I want to start off with first my favorite player of all time. Probably my favorite athlete. I got Charles Woodson, but is one. So I think I got two. But Steve Yzerman. Steve Yzerman is without a doubt a Detroit legend, a Detroit hero. And I got to meet him once, and he was just so just kind. Like you could just tell he's just a kind, good human being.
Good day.
Yeah. Oh, really?
No, I can't.
But yeah, like if you could just talk about what it's like to just spend so much time with that legend. He's such a legend.
If I had to describe Steve Yzerman with one word, it would be intense. And yeah, he can be really kind and he can be a great guy, but if you're not pulling your percentage of the rope, or you're picking up your part of the weight, you'd feel his full weight come down. And that was organization wide. He expected the most out of everybody, every player, coaches, the trainers, everybody. So he was a very intense guy. I remember, when it wasn't so good for us, when, we would winning President's Cup trophies and losing in the first round, or, the Jamie Baker goal against San Jose, and him and his wife Lisa sat in Dr. Finley's office until 2 a.m. before he even took his equipment off,
Wow.
So I saw him in the dark times, and I was never happier for anybody, other than the achievements my kids have accomplished, than to see him raise the Stanley Cup in 1997. So, I saw a lot of the dark times. I listened to him talk about maybe it was passing him by, and how, he wasn't a fearful man, but I could tell that he was very concerned about that. Maybe, he was going to be one of those guys that had a great career and never got his name on the cup.
Yeah.
So when he finally did, it was a big relief for everybody.
Were you around? I forget the exact time frame, but there was a time where there were rumors that Yzerman was going to get traded to Ottawa.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Scotty was a great motivator. I wasn't privy to the conversation. I don't think that was ever a real possibility. But it doesn't matter who you were or how well you were playing. You never knew you were in the lineup until you saw the lineup posted. And that's just the way Scotty was, and that's just the way he wanted it. He wanted to keep everybody on their toes. You'd have to ask management, coaches about that, but I don't ever think that was a real honest consideration.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine it. But I remember there were rumors, but all right. There's so many players, so many legendary players. But again, we talked about Bob Probert, but God rest his soul. What was Bob Probert like on an everyday, like off the ice? Like, what was it like being around Proby?
He was just such a good person, the biggest heart, just the kindness. He would stop and talk to kids or talk to fans, and really, unless, and I didn't see him during his darkest days, being caught at the border and all that stuff. I came to the team after that, but one of my responsibilities was to kind of keep an eye on him a little bit on the road, because at that time we would have curfew the night before games, but if we were staying in a city and then going somewhere the next morning, we really didn't have a curfew, so they kind of charged me with tagging along with him, and I would just kind of nudge him and go, "All right, Bob, I think we're good here. Let's head back to the hotel," kind of thing. But he's like, okay. He just, he would never say, tough off, or, I'm doing my thing. It's just like, okay, Johnny, let's go. Just a big heart. I don't want to say goofy because I think he was a lot more intelligent. He was a lot smarter than people give him credit for too. But just a super, super kind, caring man.
What was it like to be out on the road with the guys? And like Probert especially, like if it was your job to kind of just be around him having such a persona of being a tough guy and then going out to bars, did he get challenged? Did people like Drunk Joe on the street try to like just challenge him? Or
I never saw it. I heard, people will come up to me now and say, you weren't there, but you should have seen my buddy went up to Darren McCarty and he was lipping at him, and Darren just turned and laughed at him, which I think would happen most of the case for an NHL player, kind of getting yipped at in the bar. Nobody's going to take that person serious and just kind of laugh at him and walk away. But I never saw it. No.
Yeah. Do you have stories that you can share from the road? Like I said, I know a lot of stuff just stays inside, but is there some funny stories or like things that really stand out about like just your travels and being like out in the public with such high profile individuals?
Well, the team dinners were always fun, and every time you see a team dinner now, unfortunately with social media, the check will always end up, and they'll always be looking, it'll be $20,000 on one meal, and everyone's like, how can people spend that kind of money? And this, it's a rookie dinner or whatever, and the tip is $5,000. So, the team dinners on the road were always a lot of fun. Guys getting what we call shoe checked, somebody crawling under the tables with a bowl of sour cream or salad dressing or something, and, just that kind of goofiness. I didn't, I was there before or after the Goose Loonies incident in Edmonton, and when things were bad off the ice, I wasn't really around, those like crazy times. But yeah, there's, they're young men with a lot of money and a lot of popularity and a lot of female attention, and a lot of alcohol. So there were some crazy times, but I never really ever saw anything get out of hand or out of control from, like they talked about with the Goose Loonies incidents or things like that. But it was just the things that I remember the most are the rookie dinners or the team meals. We had that meal, that Russian team dinner out in L.A. that was also right after the March 26th, after the big brawl, the fight night.
Yeah.
We had a team dinner out in L.A. and it was a Russian restaurant. It was another thing that brought the Russians and North American players and the other European players together was a big bonding moment, was that team dinner. So those team dinners, those rookie dinners and team meals were the funnest times.
Yeah. Another player that's Sergei Fedorov. I don't know if I don't think he's controversial to Wings fans, but there's like I don't even know if it's a love-hate kind of thing, but like his number's still not in the rafters. I think it should be. I think people are
100%.
Yeah, but I think people are a little salty because of the way he left, or like
right.
What are your thoughts on Sergei?
Sergei is one of my favorite people, not just favorite hockey player. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. Him and I hit it off right from the get-go and still stay in touch to a degree. And he's just another really good person, but he was a bit of an enigma. A lot of people really didn't know him, and he could be very moody, and he had a lot of things. I would just challenge a North American player, go play in Russia and see how, socially and emotionally it is on you. So yeah, the guy's going to be moody,
Yeah.
So you could catch Sergei out on, in a bar in Metro Detroit, and he could be in a great mood and buy you a drink, or he could be an asshole, but that's his prerogative. He's got his thing going on, and, you might have had a bad day at the office and nobody's coming tapping on your shoulder and, wanting autographs or taking selfies or whatnot. But he, for me, there's no doubt that his his number should be retired. 91 should be in the rafter. It should have been in the Joe, unfortunately, but there's still plenty of time to do that. And there are, administrative rifts, contractually, some things were done and said that I think enough time has passed now that should be water under the bridge. That's obviously that's my opinion.
Yeah.
That's my feeling. I think he did enough on the ice to justify his 91 going up in the rafters.
That's what it is. I think that's obvious, and like you said, with time heals all wounds and stuff. And I agree with you fully. I think it's time to embrace Sergei Fedorov as a Red Wings legend.
Yeah.
He was such a
For sure.
integral part of championships.
Yeah.
So
we don't win one cup, let alone three with Sergei.
Yeah.
During the time he was there, if he wasn't there. So
yeah.
It's time. It's a little bit past time, but any time that it happens will be a good time.
Hey, what was it like to hoist the Stanley Cup? What does that feel like?
That was just on TV. Last week, they showed they've been replaying those games.
Yeah.
Sergei actually brought the cup over he had it for the second time, and he handed it to the coaches, and then he took it from them and skated it right to me, and I was like, are you kidding me? I videotaped the TV of me raising the cup so I could have it on my phone.
That's awesome.
I kind of forgot about it, but it's amazing, man. You talk about lifetime achievement, and then you go and you look and you get the rings. But more important than that is your name's on there. My name's on there. And it's on there for the rest of my lifetime.
Yeah.
And probably my kids. So those kind of things. It's just like I said. When we first started talking, I was in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing, and some good results came of it.
That is absolutely awesome. I didn't know your name was on the your name's on the cup. Oh,
Yeah, 3 times.
That is awesome, man.
Yeah, full names too. It's just kind of weird because they'll put S. Eiserman, S. Fedorov, but John Wharton. Come on, man! You could have put J. Wharton and Steve Eiserman. I would have been fine with that. It's so weird.
Right, wow.
That they the players get a first initial, and it's wrong. They should stop doing that. The staff will be fine with just the first initial, or even just initials. Put JW on there. I'm fine with that too. I know who it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that is interesting. I didn't know that. I wonder why they do it like that.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe just
check it out.
Possibly because the players, they're recognizable by their last names because their last names are on their jerseys. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have
there's a limited amount of space too. And once you see, Eiserman, Fedorov, Hall, Robitaille, you know who all those guys are.
Yeah.
But, so the other people, Paul Boyer, Sergei Manatsakanov, you get full recognition because nobody knew who you were. So,
you were though. You were a celebrity in your own right. You were So what was that like? Did people?
It was Detroit Red Wings, late '90s. I mean, we had the Zamboni driver was a celebrity. The anthem singer was a celebrity. Everybody, everybody. You were a part of probably in our lifetime the greatest sports team in this city.
Yeah.
So it's everybody who was associated with that team was a celebrity here, and it was cool. It was a cool part.
Oh yeah, you're right, man.
I didn't pay for many meals, automobiles, or drinks for a long time.
Yeah. Oh man, that must have been so much fun, man. What a wild ride. So
that was great.
John, I could do this all day, but is there any last stuff you kind of want to? I want to ask you if you want to wrap this up as far as you just want to tell people that are listening to this podcast about the Red Wings, or just any final thoughts to wrap up this session.
I would just tell them to remember those good days. Know that the man in charge right now is, even if it's not going to be the same kind of hockey, the results will eventually be the same. I have 100% faith in Steve Yzerman in restoring the legacy and the greatness that winged wheel represents, and just stick with them. The LCA is a phenomenal building. They've got a great leadership, and there's the drafts that they've been accumulating and the picks they have coming up. Hockey will be special again. Just give it some time.
Yeah, I agree too. You know, it's tough times for not just the Wings fan, but all the Detroit sports. It's almost like we got blessed with so much glory, and then now it's like we're paying for it in karma or something now. Like we got too much back then. Like April and the D used to be so great, and now it's like
it used to be like, oh man, you need to have like split screen in 3 different modes. But now it's like April and the D, you're out in your garden. But you know, if you look at the leaders of the 4 pro sports teams in Detroit right now, you gotta think that 19 is going to be the one to bring them back before any of the other guys. So
I would have to agree about that.
Keep watching, keep going down there, especially after all this coronavirus is passed. It's going to be special.
All right, I agree with you. All right, listen, John, it's been a great pleasure, a great honor to talk with you. I really appreciate it. On behalf of the Detroit,
we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah.
You guys, good luck with your podcast. You get further down the road, you want to talk again, feel free to give me a call.
I got about 5,000 more questions I could ask, but so hopefully we can do part 2 soon. We don't have much else going on, so I'm sure during this quarantine. Yeah. So, but yes, like I said, on behalf of the Detroit Sports Sit Down, I just want to thank you, John, and stay safe, and we'll talk to you soon.
Back at you. Thanks, Tom.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Detroit Sports Sit Down, and wow, John Wharton is what a fascinating career that he had. What a run that he had with the Red Wings. I hope you enjoyed this special interview, and there's a lot more to come, so stay tuned. This is the Detroit Sports Sit Down. Peace.